Welcome to my channel if it's your first time here, or welcome back if you've dropped by before. My name is Jill Nicholson and I've been a trauma therapist for 25 years. If you're anything like me and you love exploring what makes us tick, why we think, feel and act as we do, then you're absolutely in the right place. Today we are going to discuss the movie Better Man, which is the story of Robbie Williams. Have you seen it? We are going to explore it through the perspective of how childhood trauma can impact us as adults, and in some cases, it can leave us vulnerable to addiction. Now, if you haven't seen this movie yet, just a heads up, there are a few spoiler alerts ahead. So you might want to watch it first and then come back to join the conversation. Okay, let's get into it. A Better Man is a biographical musical that explores the life of British pop star Robbie Williams, who is a solo artist, but started out in the boy band Take That, and they were hugely popular in the 1990s. The film employs a unique narrative device by portraying Williams as a CGI chimpanzee. Now, I have to say, before I watched it, I didn't think I was going to like it. I didn't think I was going to be keen on it, but I was really surprised. The face of Robbie Williams is a chimp, and it is so expressive, but particularly when he's a child or a child chimp, if can chimps be called child? Anyway, you know what I mean. The expressions of him when he is young are so evocative and they really touch me. In fact, beyond that, they melted my heart. But why did they choose to represent him as a monkey? Well, it was to symbolise his feelings of being less evolved than other people. Another way to express this is to say he simply didn't feel good enough. He didn't feel enough of something. Most of us, even though we're not famous, have fallen into that same hollow space of not feeling good enough in some way. Maybe we felt not thin enough, not smart enough, not lovable enough, not witty enough, not successful enough. You get that idea. Chances are you can relate to these harsh and looping phrases, maybe from your own life, and maybe they're just a whisper, or maybe they're a shout by that relentless inner critic that many of us live with. You know the one, the voice that doesn't just tear you down, but it stays to kick you while you're down. It's exhausting, it's insidious, and it is painfully human. But if you've ever felt that way, you're not alone, and you are certainly enough. The story traces Williams' journey from his early days in Stoke-on-Trent through his rise to fame with the boy band Take That and his subsequent solo career marked by personal struggles with addiction and mental health issues. The film features reimagined performances of his hits, including Angels, Rock DJ, Let Me Entertain You. So if you love his music, you are in for a treat. I especially loved the scene in Regent Street in London with all the band members on pogo sticks. So you might be asking, Jill, how does all of this connect to childhood trauma or addiction or the repetition of patterns that are harmful, almost compulsions? Well, Robbie Williams struggled with self-worth and deep self-loathing despite fame and fortune. Ironically, he was and is so loved by his fans, but the ability to love himself and offer himself compassion was non-existent. His father's departure when he was a child left an imprint, a trauma imprint, a bit like a scar that you cannot see. But it often comes out in our beliefs, our thinking, and our behaviours. It can create the drive to relive unresolved trauma, hoping for a resolution. And we do this completely out with our awareness. It's unconscious. There's a scene set in his living room when he was a young boy before his father left. Frank Sinatra's My Way is playing on the TV, and Robbie and his dad are singing along, really going for it, giving it big licks. The joy on Monkey Robbie Williams' face is unmistakable, pure, carefree happiness. But then, in a burst of enthusiasm, his hand gestures get a little too wild and he accidentally knocks something over. The mood shifts immediately. The joy is shattered, and you can see the devastation on his little monkey face as he gets into trouble. The magic of the moment is lost, replaced by disappointment and heartbreak. The psychological and emotional impact of a parent abandoning a child can leave deep, lasting wounds. Feelings of rejection, unworthiness, and mistrust that often resurface in adulthood. These unresolved wounds can manifest as difficulty forming secure relationships, or a deep-seated fear of abandonment, chronic low self-esteem, or an internal struggle with feelings of being unlovable or just never being enough. Unresolved trauma, I like to describe it to my clients as if it is an open loop, a pattern of pain that repeats because it's never fully processed, trapped in an individual's cycle of self-destructive behaviour. As I previously mentioned, we often unconsciously, so out with our awareness, recreate situations that mirror that original trauma, driven by a desperate, unconscious hope for a different outcome, a good outcome. Freud referred to this as the compulsion to repeat, the drive to relive that trauma in search of a good resolution. For Robbie Williams, this painful pattern played out publicly. His escalating addiction and inability to perform on stage because he was so intoxicated resulted in his bandmates basically asking him to leave. From their perspective, the decision was practical and probably necessary, but for Robbie, it was another crushing abandonment, another sign that he was not good enough. It's important to remember that the impact of trauma isn't just about what happens to us, it's about what happens inside us in response to it. This means that you might navigate a traumatic experience and manage to function relatively well, while the same experience could deeply affect me. On the other hand, I might cope effectively with a trauma that leaves someone else struggling with intense challenges such as extreme anxiety. This isn't about strength or weakness. It isn't about good or bad, nor is it a judgment. It's simply a powerful reminder that trauma affects everyone differently. Each person's experience is unique, and understanding this helps us respond with compassion, empathy, and wisdom. Being asked to leave the band reinforced Robbie Williams' deepest, most damaging beliefs. He wasn't good enough. He wasn't acceptable. He wasn't worthy of belonging, of being part of the band. His expulsion was just a career, it wasn't just a career setback. It was a reenactment of his earliest wound, an echo of the pain that had shaped his life when his dad, whom he idolised, just disappeared, didn't come home one day. Now, I imagine many people were bewildered, thinking, how could someone who seems to have it all spiral into self-destruction and addiction? But in order to understand addiction, we need to ask a different question. And the question is, what relief is the person trying to find or hopes to find in the drug or in the addictive behaviour? Now, that is a useful question. Addiction often masks pain, self-doubt, or fear. I once worked with a client, a man in his 30s, navigating an extremely competitive career. Under immense pressure, he turned to cocaine, chasing confidence and relief from self-doubt. When we explored his addiction, it wasn't just about the drug. It was about what the drug gave him, a momentary escape from the crushing weight of comparison and performance. He once told me that cocaine, albeit momentarily, made him feel invincible. Perhaps it was the same for Robbie Williams. Again, the useful question is, what relief is the person trying to find or hopes to find in the drug or the addictive behaviour? The answer to that question is crucial in starting the recovery process. Robbie Williams' depiction as a monkey reflects that internalised self-belief of just being less evolved, less worthy than other human beings. You see, trauma imprints trap us in destructive loops, fueling things like imposter syndrome and self-sabotage, not because we want to, but because the trauma imprint is being acted out. People don't want to ruin their future, but one way it can be acted out is by pushing the self-destruct button, and that is what he did. Many people do. Sadly, the attempt to escape from pain is what ultimately creates even more pain. Perhaps you've pushed the self-destruct button at some time in your life. I know I did in the past with binge eating. While on stage, Robbie could see, I suppose we could call them his demons in the crowd, so he imagined them being there. They were angry, they were very critical versions of himself. His past selves were aggressively berating him. Childhood attachment wounds shape how we experience love and self-worth. Attachment wounds like Robbie's devastation from his father's departure. It created a belief. People you love leave, and I'm not good enough. Not good enough, or he would have stayed. Addiction often stems from these wounds. Substances become false remedies, attempting to fill emotional voids with confidence, with ease, or belonging. In my client's case, the cocaine wasn't the real issue. It was his inability to hold his own self-worth and to self-regulate, which means the ability to calm down and to get out of that anxious, scary place where you're always on high alert. This kind of exploration, it's not about labelling people as victims. It's quite the opposite. As a therapist, my role is to collaborate with my clients to identify trauma imprints, because once we uncover them, we know where the true work of healing lies. While hearing about the trauma directly can be really insightful, these imprints often reveal themselves repeatedly in the client's life through familiar patterns. They surface in the form of anxiety, emotional eating, low self-worth, and depression, or the inability to commit to a partner, being a perfectionist, or a people pleaser. All of these can be persistent echoes of unresolved or unprocessed pain that signal where healing is most needed. In this way, we can see the reasons why someone is where they are, but it's not an excuse. The reason takes us to a place of understanding and compassion to come through the addiction, and it requires personal responsibility from the person. Whereas an excuse oftentimes can lack that self-responsibility that is needed for someone to climb out of addiction. Of the film, Robbie Williams said, spoiler alert, the first 45 minutes are I'm a happy chappy from Stoke-on-Trent, and then it's train spotting until near the end. I would say that is accurate, but it is also so much more than that. We do get a happy ending. I love a happy ending, don't you? In the powerful and emotional finale of Better Man, Robbie Williams takes the stage at the iconic Royal Albert Hall in London as he performs a heartfelt duet of My Way with his estranged father. The moment becomes a poignant expression of reconciliation and self-acceptance, and a heartwarming echo back to his childhood singing in his living room with his father. Throughout his life, Robbie Williams has spoken about being a masking champion, hiding his chronic lack of self-worth, lack of confidence, and anxiety behind bravado, charm, and showmanship. And he's good at it. For years, his public persona shielded his private pain, with addiction and self-destructive behaviour becoming part of that mask. But in this pivotal performance, the mask slips away. Out in the crowd, he imagines the many versions of his younger self that previously had been attacking, angry, lost, wounded, aggressive. They're no longer attacking him. They're no longer tormenting him. They watch him. They witness this man that he is now. They support him. And in that moment, we see a man who is healing. Singing alongside his father, Robbie bridges the distance between who he was and who he's become, confronting his vulnerabilities without armour, without pretense. The performance reaches its emotional peak as he delivers a heartfelt tribute to his beloved grandmother Betty, honouring the woman whose love offered him stability through the chaos. In this transcendent moment, the weight of the past dissolves into the music. The bravado falls away, leaving only authenticity, closure, and self-acceptance. Robbie, once at war with himself, stands whole, a man no longer masked, but seen, known, and finally at peace. He is indeed a better man, in my opinion. You can probably tell I loved this movie. Please let me know what you thought of the movie. And if this video resonates with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And I'm going to end with this that I want you to remember, especially if you're someone who's struggling with addiction or mental health problems. The past may shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. With the right help, you can become better. You can become the person you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.